Hello, wonderful people. It's my pleasure to welcome you to another edition of the show. It's Sport Exchange right here. And I'm your host, Gideon Lanron. You know how we do it? Every week, we come with the best of sports business gist for you. And also, we look into, the business of sports and how to make it better. That is it. All right, you know how we do it? We have the segments where we take the news, and our dugout segment is going to be a special one because on today's edition, we'll be celebrating one of Nigeria's foremost Nigerian sports psychologists. We'll be celebrating him and we'll be picking his mind on how to move forward as far as sport is concerned. We're going to short break. When we come back, it will be time for me to go straight to the news.
Fantastically finished.
Welcome back. Yes, I'll take the news straight off and then we'll go straight after that to the dugout segment. Lagos Marathon is the first news that we're taking today. A significant number of elite athletes will run at the 2021 Access Bank Lagos City Marathon. In a statement signed by the communication and media manager of the event, Kayode Thomas, it quoted the general manager of the race, Mr. Yusuf Ali, saying quality athletes from around the world are showing interest in the race. Runners that will participate at the 2021 Access Bank Lagos City Marathon has been pegged at 10,000 instead of the over 100,000 that is expected to run in the one-day event due to COVID-19. The organizers of the Africa's biggest marathon event are aiming for a gold label, having achieved the bronze and silver label in record time. And now to Olympics. A report says Japan plans to allow a large-scale number of overseas visitors to attend next year's Tokyo Olympics without mandatory vaccination or quarantine, provided they submit negative COVID-19 test results and download tracking apps. The report, which did not identify the source of the information or detail how many visitors will be allowed, also says Japan will now restrict tourists from using public transportation system. And to tennis, Tennis Australia expects to exhaust most of its $59.1 million reserves to maintain funding to the sport as it deals with significant costs in staging the Australian Open during the COVID-19 pandemic. Tennis Australia boss Craig Tiley says the governing body would likely spend more than $40 million on quarantine and biosecurity operations for the year's first Grand Slam, which is also expected to be delayed from its January 18 to 31 schedule. And in cricket, India Premier League team Kolkata Knight Riders, co-owned by popular Bollywood actor Shah Rukh Khan, has picked up a stake in the city-based Major Leagues cricket in the United States, according to the 2020 league. The inaugural season of the MLC, featuring 6 franchises, is expected to commence in 2022. It will be the third T20 league to see the involvement of the Knight Riders group, which also owns the Trinbago Knight Riders in the Caribbean Premier League. And in boxing, retired boxing greats seem to be craving for exhibition fights check as Evander Holyfield has called out Mike Tyson, saying it was time the two former undisputed heavyweight champions returned to the ring to cap their rivalry and settle legacies. Holyfield's challenge comes after 59-year-old Tyson dominated Roy Jones, who is 51, in an exhibition fight on Saturday in Los Angeles that was ruled a draw. Calling the bout with Jones Jr., a tune-up, Holyfield taunted Tyson, urging him to give the world the fight they want to see. That's it. It's a wrap as far as the news is concerned. We're going to short break, and it will, after that, straight to the dugout segment where we'll be talking to a gold mine when it comes to sports in Nigeria. Don't go away. Welcome back. Right now, I'm being joined on the Dugout segment by a foremost Nigerian sports psychologist, Professor Oluwaseun Omotayo joins me on Sport Exchange today. Professor, thank you very much for joining me on Sport Exchange today. How are you doing?
Well, it's been nice.
Prof, let me congratulate you on your milestone achievement in the academics and sport development practice. 30 solid years. How would you just sum up, how would you sum up the journey for us on the show?
Well, it's been a journey that can be described as the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because as an academic, there are patches that are not one is not comfortable with, but there are other patches that one is very happy about, particularly when you make academic breakthroughs, whereby you are able to prove to people that it is not all about theory, but that there can also be practice as a result of the theory that you understand. So the last 30 years have been a period of transparency in terms of the practice of sports psychology in Nigeria, and also in the advancement of sports for development in the world, as it were, and Nigeria be the epicenter of my activities in the last 30 years.
The gap we have between us and some other countries, especially when you talk about collegiate sports, it is too wide. How do we bridge this gap, especially with the likes of Europe and America?
The first way to break that gap is for Nigerian tertiary institutions to accept that education actually stands on a tripod. The tripod at the cognitive domain, the psychomotor domain, and the affective domain. Unfortunately, over the years, we appear to have been dancing around the cognitive domain, whereby allowing the other domain, particularly the psychomotor domain, to suffer. And we have forgotten that each time we produce individuals into the world of work, they are supposed to be able to function. And one of the areas where talent will work is in the area of sports, apart from entertainment. So over the years, we have placed a cognitive domain over the psychomotor domain, and it has affected the affective domain of education. Be that our academic institutions don't see sports as a vocation that can assist our graduates. A majority of one of the places that sportsmen can go into or graduates can go into immediately. That is why there should be a synergy between education and sports, such that the cognitive domain will go pari passu with the psychomotor domain. And don't forget that majority of people are earning livelihood now are using their talent. And talent is more in the psychomotor domain. And that's where sports come in very handy. So unless our tertiary institutions have a change of mind and have a way of ensuring that we give all-round education, I don't think we'll be near where other countries are in terms of collegiate sports. Don't forget that recently 7 Nigerians in America were drafted into the NBA. Do we have such a chain of sports development in this country? No. There's no place to graduate into. And that is why we have what we call the African Sports and the African Students Football Union that tends to look at sports and university development through the prism of sports and ensuring that we bring the town and the gown together in the matter of sports so that students, while they are still in school, will be earning a living through their sports talent. But we are at it. We are working with a lot of universities, and we expect that with time, there will be a change in the programming of our academic activities in Nigeria, so that we now get near what collegiate sports is in America, Jamaica, and Europe. For instance, in Jamaica, they keep asking the question each time we're at international conferences that how can Jamaica be doing well while a country like Nigeria is where it is? Because we have so many things in terms of body anthropometry that should assist Nigeria to produce a lot of Usain Bolt, which has made Jamaica very popular in the area of sports. So we need to do a lot of rethinking in terms of the curriculum we run in Nigerian tertiary institutions. And the society generally, we should stop paying lip service to sports, because sports is a means to so many ends.
Okay. All right. Prof, let me ask you, there are a lot of questions around these collegiate games, because I would have expected that maybe, because I've never seen a policy that has to do with Nigeria collegiate games. I'm yet to see it. But let's move away from there and talk about something novel that you are marking your 30th anniversary of being in academic and sports development with. Is the fact that there is a book you authored and which will be unveiled very soon. It is about Atlas of Africa Track and Field Athletes. Why did you decide to just focus on track and field? You are a man of many parts. You've been in football, management, but why track and field?
Let me clear the air. It is true that I play football as a student up to the university level, but I tell you, my passion is track and field, because that's the mother of all sports. People say soccer is only the opium of the people. The mother of all sports is actually track and field. But basically, as a psychologist, we recognize essence in order to continue to optimize performance. So the idea of the book was to catalog the performances of track and field athletes across Africa and recognize this essence and bring it to the law so that we could continue to replicate those performances of top athletes in Africa. Again, we can easily forget some of these performances that are needed to ensure that the significant other status of these athletes have a positive effect in the sustainable development of track and field across Africa. So that is what actually motivated the book. One is to be able to motivate others. Two, to recognize essence, which is the hallmark of the discipline of sports psychology. And I started with track and field because that's my passion. But there are plans to go into other sports after having a successful public presentation of the Atlas of and then the idea of the Atlas is a combination of is a collage of individuals that I have around me. Don't forget that Professor Ayomotayo is an inaugural professor of Lagos State University. And he's a geographer as it were. So after putting the books together and he saw that I'm talking about Africa, then we felt that we can call it an atlas, because anything can be an atlas so far as it has a geographical spread. So I was satisfied the aspect of recognition of essence, the balance of sports psychology. The title of the book actually was rejigged and redirected by Professor Ayomotayo. Don't ask me what is my relationship with Professor Ayomotayo. Ayomotayo brings us together, and the professorship also brings us together.
Prof, let me ask you, yes, you in 2006, you were one of those, of course, one of the top guys that drove the National Sports Festival, the Gateway Games then, and these days we're struggling to organize the National Sports Festival. What is wrong? What can you say is wrong with us not being able to organize a festival?
Well, I think one cannot use the Edo 2020. We cannot use the Edo 2020 to judge whether Nigeria can organize a sports festival or not. Reason being that it's an unusual year. COVID-19 has not been a friend of anybody, and it has affected sports tremendously. So one cannot just say we cannot organize a festival. After Gateway Game 2006, which of course I can say all the time that it's a positive reference point, was another successful private sector driven games in ECO 2012. And I think after ECO 2012, the another one we're supposed to have is this Edo 2020. But be that as it may, I think after Gateway 2006, there was an idea that we start running the National Sports Festival in the manner of the international events of the level of the Olympics, the Commonwealth, such that we have 2, 3, 4 states lined up for the festival. We shouldn't be deciding, for instance, Edo 2020, the decision was maybe about 2 years ago, and Edo started putting things together. But it is possible for us to have known that after Edo, maybe you are coming back to Ogun State, so that Ogun State will have a 4-year period to plan and implement the type of games that befits our country in terms of our status among the committee of sporting nations. So what we need to do to also be having festivals that will not be fractured is to us to have a mechanism that allows for long planning and implementation of a festival. And we avoid a situation where, unless in a matter of force majeure, as it were with Edo 2020, we don't change the dates of the National Sports Festival in the country. Because that has been a serious bane of the festival, which Ogun tried to correct, and was supposed to follow up immediately after that, but unfortunately, the festival ran into some other issues of dates and implementation. Again, policymakers are supposed to allow professionals to do what they know best. How do I mean? Even if you look at the case of Edo, honestly, between you and now, I knew Edo wouldn't take place from the 3rd of November to 18th of November. Because in terms of the health of the athletes, it was not even fair for you to ask athletes who have been locked up in the last 6 or 7 months to now be informed within a space of 4 weeks to come and start competing. So for me, as a sports scientist, I knew that was not feasible. And if they went ahead to have the festival, the consequences of such an action is more on the athletes, which of course is my concern. Now the athletes they now have maybe up to about 6 weeks, which scientifically is acceptable for them to have gone into some training and brush up their technical skills. Then have enough opportunity to work on their mental capacity to go into a festival. Because issues of uncertainty has grave consequences on athletic behavior. And I want to plead with policymakers to always allow professionals, in the same manner that some professionals said, but for COVID-19, it's not safe to have sports. They should consult professionals that can tell you when sportsmen can compete very well. Cannot just foist dates on sportsmen and women, forgetting that they too have a gestation period for which they can put up optimum performance. Unless we just want a jamboree and not a competitive sports festival, I think the way we toy with dates for the Edo 2020 is not informed and it is unscientific. That is my own position.
All right. It's even good that anyway it's been postponed till next year. But let's move away from there and let's also look at.
You are looking at the year, Jide. You are looking at the year. You are looking at the year. If you say postpone to next year is in less than 30 days. Anybody that watches insult and you're a sports scientist, you know that what can you do in 30 days? For athletes that did not take palliative when in March the festival was postponed, in this country there is no facility for cyber coaching, and most of the athletes were left to their fate. So when you say next year, it's as if next year is another 24 months. Next year is another 30 days or less. So the athletes' health, as it were, at the physical, physiological level, as well as psychological level, is still in peril, as far as I'm concerned.
So that means that there's so much questions, because I know that your response is going to throw up a lot of questions that how do we go? But does that make it, in fact, if I'm to take a cue from what you just said, does that mean we are going in for a jamboree in Edo?
Well, it's a festival. It's a festival. It could achieve competitiveness, and at the same time, it could achieve the nature of a festival, as it were. But if you look at the operational definition of a sports festival, it is not talking of a jamboree. It is talking of the collage of so many activities coming up at the same time, in order to promote so many things, in order to use sports for development of national unity, development of sustainability of sports, the development of young athletes, development of the immediate environment itself. So that is why the World Festival is used for it. You don't call it a tournament or a competition. So it could achieve the purpose of Nigerians coming together and to see each other and speak the language of sports. And you may end up not from that festival getting to see young athletes that we used to do come up, and some of them are trained to become podium athletes, as it were. So it can go ahead and have the festival, but I'm telling you, it's not going to truly have the trappings of what a festival is supposed to be.
All right. Prof, let's move on to, I know you're also a member of the sport industry thematic group that is trying to put together, or that has worked on a prospective sports policy document for Nigeria. And your experience in the West African sub-region, while you've been working on policy documents, I know that will offer the group so much insight to how to harmonize and how to maybe what we call the international best practice. Because the way it is right now, I don't know whether you agree with me, there's no sport industry because there is no data, there is no business. I don't know, but you might have a different opinion. But how do we work things out to make sure that this sports national industry, that this national sport policy comes to reality?
Well, I think you see, I think the processes so far deployed by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group to ensure that we have a proper sports industry in Nigeria is along international best practice. Given my experiences while we were putting together the ECOWAS Youth and Sports Policy document. Why do I say so? It's unfortunate that the sports industry, as it were in the world today, according to maybe Pitmawick, is a $900 billion dollar economy. And if you look at the share of Africa in this humongous economy, Africa is not there. So unless you bring in the private sector and you use the language of the private sector, then you are not likely to have a sports business. Because sports business at its why, if you look at it, is completely different from sporting activities itself. It is the sporting activities that are supposed to now drive the sports industry. But in order for you to drive that sports industry, there is need for the private sector to be carried along. And I think so far, for what we're able to do, that thematic group, a document is not there for us to debate. Now we are then let it get adopted by the stakeholders. And I think the major stakeholder in this matter is the National Council for Sports. And once the National Council for Sports can adopt the document that has been put together by the NESG thematic sports industries group, then it will be adopted at the national level, and sports will now be fully run as business. It will stop. We will not have sports for the boys. It will be sports for business. Thereby, anybody that is in the business of sports will be able to distinguish between amateurism and professionalism. But in Nigeria, we have an odd mix of amateurs and the professionals coming together. But there is a difference between the two. If we now have the professional body managing the business of sports, then you can have amateurs graduating into professional athletes, and the industry will now have a chain of entertainment where you now have people taking up their own responsibilities. But as it were, how have we been able to take care of the dramatic personnel in any sports industry? That one, as it were, is very poor. What is our coaching standard? How do we grow our athletes? How do we discover our talents? How do we manage these talents to the level that they will become attractive to people to want to invest in them? How are we making use of our facilities? So that is what that document is supposed to achieve once it is adopted. But the processes that have been done so far, I think one must commend the Honorable Minister for Sports for the support for what NESG has been able to do. And I'm sure that all other stakeholders, like the National Council for Sports, that are supposed to look at it and ensure that it becomes a fit for purpose document. Once that is done, then we start the business of sports in Nigeria. But as it were, the business of sports in Nigeria is at zero level. You see places where sports is business, they can now afford a lockdown for football not to start, because a lot of business activities go on when footballing activities go unhindered. But in Nigeria, because it is not business, it's more of leisure and whatever, you can afford to lock down and say that people should not go and play football or something like that, or don't go and run and do other things. But when it is your livelihood, the government knew that they couldn't lock down a downfall driver, because that man, the downfall driver, is a daily paid worker. We call it work and eat. They couldn't lock them down, because after some time they will tell you can't lock them down, because that's their means of livelihood. If government in Nigeria and Nigerians see business, sports as a vocation that gives people livelihood, you won't lock sports down the way we have done this far. We will not toil with this. We will not toil with our timings. We will take informed decisions. When the Olympic Games was to be postponed, they did not say come after 3 months. They took informed decisions. Apple collated all views. Then they said it's okay, postpone it by another 1 year. Maybe probably that is what would have happened to our national sports festival.
Prof, I must say thank you very much for joining me. It's quite revealing, and I know that we could keep going on and on, but I must say thank you very much for joining me, and I wish you all the best as you celebrate your 30 years in academic and sport development practice. All right, I just spoke with, that's on our dugout segment, we just spoke with foremost Nigerian sports psychologist, Professor Oluwasegun Omotayo, who has been revealing a lot from the sports development practice to the book is written, National Sports Festival and the National Sports Policy. Anyway, don't forget you can also keep the conversation coming. The social media handles are there, Facebook, Twitter, and also you can still watch our program on YouTube. Until I come your way next week, I remain yours truly today, tomorrow, and of the future, Jide Olaniran, and I'm signing out.